We've got combat footage from both sides showing a firefight in a Gaza school. And if you're looking for an extra couple $100,000 this holiday season, Israel's got an option for you. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm recording this at 8 a.m. Central on Thursday, December 14th, 2023. Overnight, Israel released the name and picture of one of their soldiers that they say was killed during combat operations. According to the Israeli government, they say that since October 7th, that brings the total to 445 service members killed, with an additional 1,740 wounded. About a week ago, Israel began releasing more detailed casualty information around the number of wounded soldiers in Gaza, as well as from the October 7th attacks. They added a note over the past 24 hours saying these numbers, referring to the 1,740 wounded, do not include the routine evacuees not as a result of an operational event and those who came to the emergency room and are not hospitalized. So there was a newspaper article about a week ago saying that in interviews with hospital staff, the total number of Israeli military personnel in the hospital was significantly higher than what the Israeli government's putting out. Looks like this note is in response to that, clarifying that the 1,740 are due to operational events. These are the ones taken off the battlefield in Gaza. And then, of course, those on the October 7th attacks. The Gaza Health Ministry updated their information saying that since October 7th, 18,608 Palestinians have so far been killed, with at least 50,594 wounded. Again, a couple notes with this. The Gaza Health Ministry data here published through Al Jazeera is at the very least overseen by Hamas. And we know that the number of Hamas militants killed and wounded are included in those numbers, but they are not broken out separately. Then shifting over to the situation on the ground, Israel said that overnight they searched a school compound that served as a central focus of the Sajaya battalion of Hamas. I hope I'm saying that right. I think I said Shajaya yesterday. Had some nice folks correct me on the pronunciation. Sajaya is what I'm going with today. Israel said they uncovered fighting positions from inside this compound, and they were engaged during the clearance operations. They were able to encircle that school compound, destroying the fighting positions and the terrorists within. They added that fighters from the Magellan unit raided a number of checkpoints in the Khan Yunis area where they found weapons, grenades, and AK-47s. They added that the fighters there, the Israeli forces there, destroyed 2 tunnel shafts, a rocket launch pit, and a weapons warehouse that was also identified in the Khan Yunis region. Israel also noted that in the past 24 hours, more than 70 Hamas militants have surrendered to their forces. Then shifting over to the Hamas side, we have what I think is, for the first time in this war, footage from both sides showing the same firefight. Now, Hamas put out about 6 minutes of combat footage from in and around the Gaza Strip, a lot of tandem charge RPGs, IEDs being detonated, some small arms fire against dismounted Israeli elements. All of that footage was published on their Telegram channel under the username Qassam Brigades. If you want to watch it in its entirety, you can find it there. But moving to this clip that we have both sides from, it looks like what we have are Hamas militants engaging Israeli forces from inside of a school. I'll play a little bit of that here. And then Israel released their own footage from this engagement, or at least it looks like the same. I haven't seen really confirmation from either side, but it does, let me know what you think, does look like the same complex. Now, I can't show a lot of the Israeli footage here either, because what they're highlighting in their video are I think it's 3 or 4 dead Hamas militants in the aftermath of that attack. Now, in relation to this attack, Israel said that they received intelligence of suspicious activity in the area of the school, and then once they got there, Hamas opened fire from inside of the school on the Israeli forces conducting the search. According to Israel, during the raid, Hamas opened fire with light arms and RPGs, and they said the troops engaged, waged a battle against the terrorists, and eliminated them. Additionally, Israel said that following this engagement, after the Hamas militants had been eliminated, their forces identified underground complexes and tunnel entrances that led into or right around the school that were subsequently destroyed by airstrikes. $400,000 for Yahya Sinwar. Dead or alive, gotta assume. That's the new offer from Israel that was released on a flyer dropped all over Gaza yesterday. So, they put on the flyer, think about your future. Confidentiality is guaranteed. I got to think this applies not just to people in Gaza, but anywhere. So if you're watching this video and you got a hot tip about Sinwar or any of his associates, a little extra walking around money this holiday season. So Yahya Sinwar, again, $400,000 reward. Mohammed Sinwar, his brother, Israel's offering up to $300,000. For Rafi Salama, the major general of the Khan Yunis area, the offer is $200,000. And then Mohammed Deif, the offer is only $100,000, which is significant. He is the leader of the Qassam brigades, oversees all militant activity in Gaza. You can read into that a little bit and think maybe he's not alive anymore if the offer is so low for essentially the top military personnel in Hamas right now. Additionally, Israel put out this graphic showing a humanitarian zone that Israel designated a humanitarian zone, and on October 18th said this is the place to go for Palestinian civilians. If you want to be safe, this is an area that's not going to be targeted. We'll try to get aid into this. And there are a handful of these designated across the Gaza Strip. Anyways, Israel says that since October 18th, Hamas has fired 116 rockets from that designated humanitarian zone, with 38 of them falling inside of Gaza, which has been a major challenge for Hamas since this war kicked off, is the number of failed rockets landing inside of their own territory, which isn't shocking. Rockets at baseline are tricky, but when you're making them yourself, kind of in some of these underground weapons manufacturing facilities, they're homemade in a lot of ways. 38 out of 116 failure rate is kind of to be expected to a degree. But the challenge here, of course, is when rockets are being launched from a humanitarian zone, how does Israel respond to that? If they strike inside the humanitarian zone, everybody's going to be up in arms and frustrated and angry, and there's likely going to be significant collateral damage in terms of civilian deaths. And it seems like as soon as Israel designates any of these areas kind of off limits, says this is now a humanitarian area, we've seen on a couple occasions now Hamas moving into those areas and launching attacks from there. Then yesterday, Hamas put out a statement, kind of an overview of where things sit and where things are going. It's pretty long. I'm going to summarize a big part of this. They said on the 36th anniversary of the launch of the Hamas movement and in the shadow of the blessed flood battle of Al-Aqsa, we renew our pledge to continue the resistance until the end of the occupation and the fulfillment of the aspirations of our people for liberation, return, and the establishment of the Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital. And they broke it out into 8 different parts. And again, I'll kind of summarize these quickly. They said, first, Hamas and its victorious Qassam brigades will remain the protective shield of the Palestinian national project and the aspirations of our people for liberation, return, and independence. Second, we will not accept any guardianship, complete sovereignty. Third, the Zionist occupation and President Biden bear full responsibility for the massacres against our people. The day will come where they will be held accountable. Fourth, they are open to all efforts to stop the fighting, release prisoners held in Israeli prisons, and to create a path forward for an independent Palestinian state. Fifth, they issued a call for their people to remain steadfast and to escalate resistance against Israeli forces. Sixth, they saluted the forces fighting on their behalf. Sounds like those inside of Gaza. Seventh, a salute to those who stand in solidarity with their cause all around the world. They called out, a handful of protests happening across the Middle East, Europe, and abroad. And then eighth, a call for the international community to stop the aggression and to provide relief for the people in the Gaza Strip. So every day there are multiple very controversial stories coming out of the war in Gaza, and I choose not to cover those for the most part, which might be wrong, might be right, but I'll at least explain my rationale here. So there are people who do that, have channels do that. Ryan McBeth comes to mind. He does a great job of taking some of the more controversial topics and claims coming out of this conflict or any other, and usually in like 60 seconds or less, providing the evidence as to why that thing did happen or did not. So Ryan, of course, worth checking out. I choose not to go down that rabbit hole because it's kind of never ending from my point of view. And the reason I say that is 9 times out of 10, the more explosive a story is right out the gate, the more likely it is to be proven, at the very least, highly exaggerated as more information comes out. And usually these stories, they circulate because there's not enough information yet to fully dispel it. And then 2, 3, 4, 5 days later, that information does come out, and it's like, oh, it turns out that thing actually wasn't true. So the way that I've looked at that is I could cover those. Again, there's multiple options every day of things that will really piss people off on any side. And it'll get a lot of clicks and a lot of attention. A ton of people will see it because it's highly controversial. But then, what I should do then is follow up 2, 3, 4 days later as more information comes out and say, hey, remember that highly controversial story I talked about? Turns out it wasn't true. But you and I both know that only a fraction of the people that saw the original story will see the follow-up and the correction. So it feels like I would be adding bad information out into the world, and more people would see that than the correction of, turns out it actually went a different direction. Now, that might be the right way to approach it. It might be the wrong way to approach it. I don't know. It's the way that I choose to approach it. So, maybe this is just another reminder of, be sure to look at a bunch of different sources. It's humbling that so many of you are here following me for updates on the war in Gaza or Ukraine or any other conflict around the world. And it means a lot. But the only thing I know for sure is I'm not perfect and I get things wrong. And this is one of them. This is a decision of something that I choose to cover or not cover. So again, follow a lot of sources, check a lot of sources. And if that's something you really want to see, kind of the hot topic being debated as to whether or not it's true or not, again, Ryan Macbeth is a great resource for that. Then shifting to an area of this conflict that very well might be the tipping point into a regional war that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. The Red Sea, Yemen, and the Houthis. So 2 days ago, the Houthis struck a commercial vessel with missiles, no casualties, some damage to the ship. Sounds like it managed to stay afloat. And then overnight, or at approximately 8:30 a.m. Sana time on December 13th, the Ardmore Encounter, a Marshall Islands flagged tanker, sent out a distress call because Houthis attempted to board the tanker via smaller vessels alongside it. When that was unsuccessful, those small ships from the Houthis moved out and they launched a pair of missiles at the vessel, at the Ardmore Encounter. Sounds like both of those missed. And then the USS Mason was in the region, heard the distress call, responded, started heading over to the Ardmore Encounter. And while they were en route, the USS Mason shot down a drone launched from Houthi territory that was headed directly at the U.S. ship. So the U.S. referred to this as shooting down the drone in self-defense. So again, I feel like we're kind of glancing over what's happening in the Red Sea with Yemen and with the Houthis, but this is an area more than anywhere else right now where we very easily could see an escalation into a broader regional or even global war. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if you're interested in national security subjects, be sure to check out the sit reps I put out on Substack. Link is in the description below. Substack now also has ad-free, sponsor-free videos that go live about 1 hour before they're up on YouTube. But thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.